What's up, guys? Welcome back to Roensch Capital Charts. Today we're taking a look at Nvidia stock, ticker symbol NVDA, on a variety of time frames in anticipation of the next trading day, Friday, March 8th. All right, guys, Nvidia today is on another run, finishing the day, at least in regular hours, up $39.69 per share. That's 4.47%. It is up, I don't know, roughly another... We're looking at another 2.1% in after hours. It is literally sitting at all-time highs right now in the after hours after closing at an all-time high. Unprecedented strength in Nvidia here today, Thursday. Now listen, as always, even with that strong close and this strong after hours movement, have to remain unbiased here, right? The after hours movement is on relatively low volume. So as always, whether it's in your favor or going against your current bias, take the after hours with a grain of salt. Though there is kind of a wrench thrown into the mix that we're pushing into all-time highs here in the after hours. It changes things slightly, but still, take it with a grain of salt. Now, let's jump in here and start with our daily ritual, the volume profile analysis for the intraday, the main session here today on the 5-minute chart. If you have not done so already, please subscribe to the channel. I greatly appreciate it. My goal here soon is 5,000 subs. Not going to be able to reach that without your help, so I appreciate you climbing aboard. And hey, by the way, just so you know, a little announcement here. Every day I'm doing a viewer-voted wildcard stock for the next day. So whichever stock gets the most comments, we'll count them up every single day, probably the next day heading into recording. Whichever ticker has commented the most on tonight's videos, I will cover as a wild card tomorrow. So while you're listening, just run down to the comment section quick, drop a ticker you'd like to see me cover, and I may just do so tomorrow. So thank you guys for watching these. I hope you enjoy that. Let's take a look here. Now, the most obvious moves, you guys know what I'm looking for at this point, right? I want to see big changes in volume that correlate with an obvious move in stock price. That right there would be one of them. Okay, I'm also kind of interested in that close, but it has to be outside of what is contextual at that time of day. For example, if we get contextually high volume off the open that isn't really higher than we may expect, then it's well within what is expected that time of day, right? We can't just compare the open to intraday, right? The market really doesn't work that way. Everyone's at lunch. But on a day as strong as today, we need to take a look at this. So that push that we got shortly after the open, that was an obvious move. And interestingly, we actually did see 3 bars of increased volume. I'm going to go ahead and say that that is slightly out of context. It's not incredibly, ridiculously obvious, but it's definitely a little bit there. Okay, and on top of that, if we head down to the close, you can see that we got an increase. It is pretty contextual, though I will say that this closing candle off of the first candle after the closing bell, it is a bit high than what would be normal. However, listen, Nvidia had just closed at an all-time high. This was, of course, before the after-hours movement. And I got to be honest, that is likely some fund or institution rebalancing. So I'm going to go ahead and say that that's pretty well within context. Though that first move is there's definitely something there. Is it the most obvious profile analysis we've ever done? Of course not. But there's something there. And of course, here on the 5-minute chart, you can see that after-hours movement is on quite low volume there. So again, take it with a grain of salt. Though, of course, if I'm a bull, I'd rather see the stock up 20 points after hours than flat or down 20 points. Let's move on now to the 30-minute chart and take a look at the self-fulfilling prophecy technical levels that I'm paying attention to tomorrow. Now, here on the 30-minute chart, of course, I have that very heavily used 50-period moving average. You can see here that the stock has pulled away the last couple of days, and it's struggling to, the moving average that is struggling to kind of keep up with the name, but that 50 period here on the 30-minute chart, that is going to be the fastest moving average that we're going to look at to respond to moves in stock price. And if I'm a bull, I want this thing getting upside as quickly as possible. You guys always hear me say, get some feet up under the move as soon as we possibly can. Add a psychological barrier to the downside, as many as possible. Ideally, I'd love to see that same thing happen on the 4-hour. We'll get to that, but the 30-minute on a move like this, I have the most hope for, since it is the quickest to move, to catch up to big moves in stock price like we've been seeing lately on Nvidia. So tomorrow here, if I'm a bull, of course, any downside test, I'm going to want to see a hard, high-volume bounce, but truthfully, considering that is a little bit of a move away, I mean, we're talking about a 4.3% downside move to test that 50 period, Ideally, I'd prefer to just see this 50 period continue upside at an accelerated rate, like a continuation of the past 2 days, which that's exactly what we've been seeing. We went from essentially flat to curling upside at an accelerated rate, and continuing to do so here into the finishing hour of after hours. Bears, really simple for you guys here. Ideally, you'd like to see this flatten out, okay? And upon a downside test, you're going to want to see a hard break on any volume that's not below average. All right, let's move on now to the 4-hour chart and take a look. You can see that this one is going to be taking its time, that 50 period moving average that is. And honestly, guys, we can't expect that thing to get upside, you know, really anytime soon in the context of this video looking ahead to Friday. So ideally, I'm still paying attention to it. It's kind of in the back of my head. Yeah, I'd like to see that thing continue to move upside, get above 850 as soon as we possibly can. It's currently at about 827. And bears, you know, really you guys like to want to see that flatten out ahead of 850. But when you get these big upside moves, that really is the biggest problem, because you start getting a lot of argument. Again, this is all self-fulfilling prophecy. It's all psychology, right? You start getting the arguments that, like, hey, it looks really extended on the 4-hour chart. It's pulling hard away from the 50 period. It hasn't been this far away from the 50 period in so and so long. These are the arguments you start hearing out of people on mainstream media that starts creeping into people's heads. And being that this is all psychology, with, of course, you know, you go out long enough in time frame, the fundamentals take over. But in the short term, you want the psychology as in your favor as possible, which means those self-fulfilling prophecy indicators that everybody seems to utilize, right? We have to also utilize and pay attention to see, okay, what may people be thinking? And then look for those things to happen that would put any hesitation about our bias to rest in the majority of people, which means having that moving average get upside as quickly as possible for bulls and flattening out as quickly as possible for bears. Now, the most important chart of all, this is the daily. This is one of the craziest charts we've seen in a little while here. Take a look at that. Now, if we zoom in here, I'm going to keep this short on the daily, right? We want the obvious story. The moving averages are not the obvious story, right? Implied volatility is creeping up a little bit, by the way. Understand the higher that goes, the higher the potential risk of IV crush. Just understand that if you're holding options or looking to sell them, for example. But what is the clear story in terms of price, psychological levels here on the daily chart? We cracked 900 a share, right? And we held that today. For me, bulls, any retest of 9, I want to see that thing hold. Okay, I want to see 900 hold as a psychological level because, you know, listen, it's not crazy anymore. $1,000 a share is creeping into view. That starts with 950 though. Okay, so if I'm a bull, a crack and hold of 950 a share here tomorrow would be a beautiful thing to see, considering that's only about a 2.4% move away, less than 2.5% move away. And bears, your ultimate goal here tomorrow would be to make this, you know, an $800 something stock again. Just get below 900 bucks a share, kind of at least on high volume, right? Have the market come together and say with a big sample size that, hey, we're not quite ready for 900 bucks a share. Because if you're a bear, you're looking to discourage as many bulls as possible, and I think that's how you do it here, at least in the very short term. Bulls, how do you discourage bears? By making $1,000 a share as talked about as possible, and that starts again with claiming 950, because then there's really nothing else to talk about until 1,000. Now, what was the bias in the options chain? What was the options traders' bias here today as they position themselves heading into tomorrow, Friday? We have 2.07 million total contracts traded, 1.3 million of those were calls, and 767,000 of those were puts. If we take a look at delta ranges, which we're doing every single day here, gives us a lot of context on a day-to-day, or from a day-to-day perspective. Every delta range is leaning to the call side except for that short-term, the 0 to 20 short-term speculator delta range, about 409,000 puts, 368,000 calls. So not overwhelmingly so, but leaning slightly put heavy on the short-term speculator category. The overall ratio, though, leaning a bit more heavy to the call side. Before you head out, don't forget to leave your ticker, your vote, for the wildcard stock you'd like to see me cover tomorrow in the comment section. And if you got value out of this video on your way out, please subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.